Welcome to the podcast. We have with us a very special guest. His name is Michael Boumendil. He's representing Sixième, a sonic branding and a music production agency. So welcome, Michael. I'm really looking forward to hearing more about audio branding strategies.
Thank you, Fredrik. Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. So I'm just going to dig right into it. So my first question, what is sonic branding and why is it becoming an essential component of brand strategy for businesses, especially in industries like ours, like energy?
Well, I could spend 2 hours answering that question because about the last part of the question of why it's becoming so big finally, there are plenty of reasons. But I want to start by the definition. Sonic branding is the science and the art of using sound and music to make brands more successful. It's a way, just like visual branding, first and foremost, to embody a brand, to help a brand be clearer and stronger about finally how a sound or a music says, okay, that's me. That's me in terms of impact. That's me in terms of meaning. That's me in terms of the way finally you help a brand understand what they stand for. Why is it becoming so big and why is it becoming so important? I have to say there are two different ways to see that. I would say by default is that words and even visual content are becoming weaker. First, words are not universal, and new generations, they don't like to write and they don't like to read. And sound and music is their vocabulary. And image, the credibility of pictures, of images is, well, they're going through a hard time. Of course, you can think about artificial intelligence, but you can also think about Photoshop. To what extent can you trust the visual now? Music has this amazing power that you don't need to translate a sound. You don't need to translate a music. Second thing, around the world, people are listening more and more to music, to sound, which make it a kind of universal language and so powerful. And I also have to say that the structure of what music is about makes it very powerful as a way to influence people. What we show at Sixième for years, and we've been working for so many different brands, what we can prove, in fact, and that's why I'm saying it's an art and it's a science. We can prove that we are influencing people in the way they think about a brand, in the way they understand the brand, and in the way they are building a link to all brands. Brands need, I would have to say, not only an understanding, but they need an emotional link to their customers. Music now is the best way to build this link and finally to build loyalty for customers.
Fascinating, I have to say. Thanks for a detailed answer. My follow-up question to this one. So energy companies, they are complex. They have a complex messaging and complex services. How would you, in this specific case for energy, how does sonic branding simplify or enhance the customer experience in such a multifaceted sector?
Well, the energy world is going under such an amazing and dramatic transformation that brands need to be clear about what they stand for and to what extent how they are taking part into this world transformation. Let's be serious. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the competition in the energy world is not what it is today. The energy sector is becoming very competitive. And, maybe 30 years or 40 years ago, when energy world brands were talking about themselves, it was very, very, very caricatural. It was about power. It was like, and everybody was doing the same thing. Today, what energy means is very different. First, that's a political and I believe a social challenge. People are much more sensitive now about the role of energy, the cost of energy, the cost in terms of money, but also the cost in terms of environment. Brands in the energy world have to be super clear about their positioning, super clear about what they stand for, and super clear about what they think about their relationship with customers. There's a functional need for brands, there's a functional need for customers, but there's an emotional challenge. Let's be clear. When brands in the energy world were using sound and music 20 years ago, it was all about we're super powerful. We bring the power to you. People are not looking anymore for this kind of energy. They want something that helps them in their day-to-day life. They want something that is respectful to the environment. They want something that makes their life easier. They want something that is reliable. And this is not about having like the big music. I remember Shell created a sonic identity 20 years ago. It was nice, but it was all about we're strong, we're big, you can count on us. This is not what energy is about today. So I have to say that a little bit like the banking world, when customer usually said, what's the difference between bank A and bank B? It's all about money. Today, brands in the energy world wants to have an emotional positioning that makes them attractive, reliable, different. This is exactly what music is about when you think about branding. And frankly, I see the amazing potential, but I also see that brands in this world have been going through very interesting visual rebranding, but in terms of sound and music, they are not where they should be, where they have to be for the benefit of their business, but also for the benefit of their relationship with customers.
I think compelling. We'll come back to the question of ROI. I mean, what is actually can give them, in benefits. But to follow up with my line of questions, so you did mention some companies in the previous answer, but I'd like to know if you could share some more examples of energy or utility companies that have successfully integrated sonic branding into their customer journey, if you will, and what were the key results they saw?
It's very interesting because to be successful in this world, you have to accept that it's not safe to be conservative. I was really skeptical, for example, about Total Energy sonic rebranding. Why that? Because they went from a positioning where they say we're super powerful to we're so nice, we're so small. Their sound now could be the sound of a cosmetic brand. And I think there's a lie there. Repositioning yourself is not about lying. So for me, that's exactly what a lot of brands in the energy world are doing. They want to use music, say, you thought we were big and we were the mean guys? No, we're nice, we're close to you. That's not the way you're approaching this. I'm thinking about a small alternative energy company. I know you know them because I know that one day you gave them a nice award for their rebranding. It's Equator. Equator did a very, very, very smart sonic branding program where they use sound and music to say, okay, we are approaching things differently. And if some of our competitors are talking about power, we're talking about empowering. And that makes a huge difference. And they've used it in their digital content. They use it on TV. They're using it in their tutorials, I have to say. That might sound, Frederick, as a very minor example, but I think it's an example that shows that you need to adopt a vocabulary, a sonic vocabulary that really makes a difference and is really in line with what you stand for. I forgot to answer about the ROI.
No, well, that's fine. We can come back. We'll come back to that one. I was just picking up on what you said. We'll come back to that question. But of course, I know the company that you referred to, and they are a great brand, I have to say. But so you mentioned what they did, but can you be a little bit more elaborate on the key results? What was their outcome of it?
So they have a sonic DNA, they have a sonic logo, they have a sonic library to use. So different music, but that have in common their own melody. They have a very specific sound where they have a part of their teams coming together and sing the name of the brand, which makes it something very unusual because it is like you and me taking part into the energy revolution. It's a lot about their vision about revolution. So they have a very unique sound texture in their sonic vocabulary. It's just like I'm telling you, Coca-Cola is having a very unique color. It's the Coca-Cola red. And I would say Ecuador has these very, beyond the melody, they have this very unique sound texture. That's part of their sonic branding success.
Oh, great. And I also picked up something else you said. You said it's not safe to be conservative. I like that statement in terms of energy because so many of the energy companies are not willing to be nothing else than conservative.
But we can measure that. I want to be clear about that. We measure the success of sonic identity programs in very, very specific things. At Sixième, this company I founded 30 years ago, but very quickly we are very clear about what we are aiming at. What do we measure? Where is the return on investment? First, it's about the awareness. When you create a sound that stands out, you bring more awareness, you bring more recall. Finally, when you speak, people pay more attention to you. And when you have more attention, you get more engagement. Second thing, the clarity of the brand. I was telling you that music is an amazing language. It's a universal language, but it's a very precise language. I want to be clear about that. We're working for, we just kicked off the Maybelline Sonic Identity. We kicked off the Cathay Pacific Sonic Identity. We have clients in all categories, in all countries, and all sizes. What we measure is that, for example, a brand like Maybelline wants to embody this idea of confidence, of liberation, there's a kind of assertive approach to makeup that is very unique. And we measured that with the sound that we have created, and we did that with a research institute, the perception of confidence, the perception of the colorful part of the brand, the perception of the assertive part and vision of makeup was much clearer with our job. Same, I could take the Cathay Pacific thing. A brand in the airline world, first and foremost, needs to be reliable. It's a question of security. And the research that was done comparing before us and after was super clear about this. Music is a language and brands need clarity. So the second big return on investment is that brands are way better understood if you do things well. And after 30 years, and that the reason why Sixième has become this global leader in sonic branding is because this is what we are delivering. And the last part I have to say, and that's funny because here we're working with a big bank called TD Bank. It's a Canadian American bank. And what we measure is the capacity for sonic branding to transform the brand in a way that creates more preference. This is as simple as this. If your brand is more meaningful, if your brand is clearer, then you trigger the confidence that makes business stronger. That is as simple as this.
Thank you. It's really compelling. And me as a branding guy, my task is always to convince the CEO and CFO and the boards and brands to have a high return on investment. So I like your specific answers in this case.
And I could be even more specific, Frederick, with one thing. Last week we kicked off the sonic identity of a big insurance company in Europe. And I talked to the CEO. And you know what he told me? He said, okay, I saw the research. That's great. But there's something even better. I used to buy a lot of music, license plenty of music for plenty of campaigns. I'm done with that. Now I have my system. It's only my system. I own the rights to use it. I don't have to buy any pieces that other brands will use, meaning that even from a financial perspective, he was spending something like 2.5 million a year with all the communication he was doing. This is done.
Very good. One more compelling answer. But let's go back into energy. So before we close off. So you are answering clearly. I follow your line of thought. But if you were to comment on some common misconceptions that energy companies in particular might have about sonic branding.
I think that there's a misunderstanding about sonic branding and there's a misunderstanding about what music stands for brands. The same way energy brands were using almost the same kind of music 20 years ago. Very orchestral, very big, supposed to be like, we are reliable, we're powerful, and this is what energy is about. Today, I see a kind of trend that for me is as caricatural. The misunderstanding is what? The misunderstanding is that sonic branding is not about music. Sonic branding is about branding. You're not picking up a music or creating a music to make your video nicer. You're not picking up a music and licensing a music so that people are pleased. No. The real deal is about creating, enhancing the difference, enriching the brain to make it clearer and more different. And at the end of the day, it's also about the consistency of the communication. I was talking to an energy brand, I think it was in January, and I was telling them, how many digital videos are you producing a year? And the guy would say, I'm not sure. I said, let's go to your YouTube page. Wow. They're posting something like 3 to 4 videos per week. So I say, at least on YouTube, you're posting something like 200 or 300 videos, and there's no consistency. What I understand is that they're going into stock music library. The music is not in line with the brand. The music is the same as not only all competitors, but all the brands going and picking up their content, their music content on these stock music library. It's not qualitative. It's not at all. It's not on helping understand the difference of the brand, and it's not at all in line with how the brand wants to elaborate the relationship with customers. So I believe the misunderstanding is that music is not there, has a complementary thing to make the message nicer. Music can be the message itself. So brands, and particularly in the energy world, because it's a world under transformation, have an amazing potential with sonic branding. But it takes some kind of clarity and understanding about what is the brand objective, how is the brand approaching the relationship with customers. It's not about having a music that I think, ooh, it's trendy, it's nice.
No, I like that. And I like what you said. Sonic branding is not about music, it's about branding. I mean, at the end of the day, the service and the need, which is to create a strong brand, that's about the brand, but not what you do with it. So I like that, Michael, so very much.
Yeah, and it was very surprising because the Maybelline Sonic identity is becoming the new global benchmark in terms of sonic branding. And people are very impressed by the quality of the job. But the real deal, and this is what we see in research, how amazingly stronger it makes the brand and all brand contents. Never in Maybelline's slide, they had this level of engagement with the video they did. It's completely crazy. And yes, it's not because they have a better music. It's because they have a better positioning, a stronger consistency. If you're not consistent, you're creating confusion. If you're creating confusion, well, you're destroying value for your brand. That is as simple as this.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. This really speaks to my branding strategy brain. So very, very much appreciated. My last question, though, and now we get into the specifics of ROI. So just if you think about energy companies, they're looking to invest in sonic branding, but they are unsure of the ROI. And you've alluded to this, and you mentioned some cases, but can you be even more specific, even in terms of numbers? What metrics or indicators should they be looking to evaluate the effectiveness of the sonic branding strategy? I know it's a mouthful that I'm asking you here, but
no, this is very simple. Let me take this insurance company. We kicked off its sonic identity 2 weeks ago. When we had people talking about the brand, one of the key challenge of this brand was to be strong in terms of approachability. A lot of people think that their insurance really does not care about themselves and they just want to make money with it. So this idea of being attentive, being approachable, being reliable is key. In research they did 1 year ago, they were putting the visual identity and they were asking people to talk about the brand. Now we did the same research with the same visual identity coming with our sound, and we have people talking about the brand. The difference in terms of approachability was up by 27%. Frederick, this is very concrete. This is already a return on investment. Second thing we did is, do you consider, or could you consider, taking this company as your insurance company? So the brand has asked me not to give that figure to make it public, so I'm not going to give you the right figure, but they told us something like this. They said, wow, how come such a small budget on sonic branding creates that value on the brand? This is it. Frederick, sonic branding is not about pleasing people. Sonic branding is about making brand stronger and their business bigger. I'm as clear as this. It's a business topic. It's a branding topic. But branding is business.
Very good. Yeah, branding is business. And I think let's finish off on, on those notes, because you mentioned in the beginning that, it's about science and it's also about, creativity. And of course, branding is the art of science and, and also you add the creativity part on top of it. But so I like that closing. But do you have any last words to any that might still be hesitant to talk to you and approach you and ask you to maybe work for them because they still don't believe in sonic branding? What would you say to those people?
I'm going to tell you they are under sonic emergency. And I'll tell you why. This dramatic transformation the world of energy is going through is creating opportunities to buy a sonic color. Again, let me go back to Coca-Cola. Once Coca-Cola invested in this red, very unique red, any brand coming closer to this red, in fact, is advertising for Coca-Cola. When you own a word, and for example, on Maybelline, we are trying to own the word maybe. Anybody using the word maybe, sooner or later, is advertising for Maybelline. What I'm telling you is that the sound of sustainability in the energy world is to be created. But the first guys who will make it successful will kill the game. We'll own the sound. And it will be something that competitors will not be able to do. On the other end, I tell you something that I see every day. If your sonic branding system is strong, then you can approach your communication in such an easier way. You don't have to look for a new music for a new campaign. What are we going to do? What are we going to buy? What are we going to license? To what extent it's true to the brand or not? You have solid foundations. But again, if you don't do it now, the capacity to destroy value for the brand, to create more confusion, is real. And what I see is that in the banking world that is also under transformation, some brands are way ahead if you compare to most of the sector, and the benefit is already very strong for them.
Very good. I think these are really good last words, and I'm convinced that, it's branding is a rational thing and an emotional thing, but for the emotions of us, music is definitely a way to get it.
And I invite everybody, because this is a game changer case, I invite everybody to have a look and an ear to this Maybelline case that we just released. It's a real game changer, but it's full of inspiration for any brand under transformation.
Very good. Thank you. I encourage you guys listening out there to listen to it. Michael from Sixième, thank you very much. It was a pleasure having you and fun to meet you as always.
Thank you, Frederick. Thank you for having me.